Hello, I'm Tillman, and welcome to the anniversary show where I celebrate an album that was released 10, 20, or 30 years ago. And today we're talking about In Search Of by N.E.R.D. While I have your attention, please don't forget to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell, and leave a comment. Don't forget to check out my other shows, Never Heard It, where I talk about classic albums that I never got around to listening to. And It's Been a While, where I talk about albums that I loved as a kid, but for whatever reason I stopped listening to them. Okay, back to In Search Of. The original electronic version of In Search Of was released on August 6, 2001, but it was only released in Europe. In an interview with Mark Ronson for the Fader Uncovered podcast, Pharrell said that he wanted to re-release it because he wanted to get play on rock stations, and not because Americans didn't like it. It does seem that people in the UK do like this version of the album more, in the same way that they seem to like Khalees more than we do. But to my American ears, the rock version is the superior version, which is why today I'm celebrating the rock version of In Search Of, which was released on March 12, 2002. So if you're watching this in 2022, it is 20 years old. Mike Skinner, aka The Streets, released his debut album Original Pirate Material in March of 2002. March 1992 gave us Criss Cross Totally Crossed Out and Arrested Development 3 years, 5 months, 2 days in the life of Chia Lee, the Fabulous Chia Lee, and En Vogue Funky Divas were all released on the same day. And March 1972 gave us Stevie Wonder's Music of My Mind. N.E.R.D, which is an acronym for No One Ever Really Dies, consists of the production duo The Neptunes, Pharrell Williams and Chad Hugo, and Shay Haley. I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, but I'm not really sure what Shay does. He does rap occasionally, but he doesn't get any writing credit, so I'm guessing Pharrell is writing his raps for him. He feels like the Jerobi of the group. He grounds everyone and keeps them together. Why you need someone to ground you when the other two members are already a very successful group, I don't know. But that's what Pharrell says in interviews, so we'll just go with that. The backing band from this album is Spymob, a Minneapolis band that hadn't done a whole lot before this. From what I can tell, the Neptunes liked their demo and asked them to come on board, and that was that. Unfortunately, they didn't seem to do too much with this opportunity. They were on the Neptunes Clone album. They released an album on Star Trek in 2003, and then they went quiet for almost a decade when they released their second full-length album independently in 2014. And that's pretty much it. I will say that their contribution to this album is significant. No subsequent N.E.R.D album has sounded this cohesive, and I'll say that part of that has to do with Spymob. The album starts out with Lap Dance, which is probably N.E.R.D's most popular song. Since the song has been released, it's been used in dozens of TV shows, movies, and video games. It features Vita and Lee Harvey, and I'm not sure why. I guess Khalees and Pusha T were unavailable, even though they both appear in the video and later on in the album. Vita has never released her own single, but has had a handful of guest verses in her career. She's probably more famous for playing small parts in movies and music videos. She plays DMX's 16-year-old side chick in Belly and the love interest in Method Man's Breakups to Makeups video. She recorded an album but was never released, and she had a mixtape released in 2012. She's also the younger sister of Kima from Total, so there's that. Lee Harvey, believe it or not, has even fewer credits than Vita because, as far as I can tell, this is his only rap verse. With the next song, things are getting better. Things get a little funkier with the rolling drums and guitar licks that remind me of a sped up version of Clean Up Woman by Betty Wright. No, Betty Wright. Yeah. This song also includes the first of only 2 Shay verses on this album. Now, if you thought they were going overboard with the metaphors and double entendres on Lap Dance, then Brain is going to be sensory overload. While Lap Dance sounded like a song about getting with a stripper, but was really about how infuriating politics can be, Brain sounds like it's about liking a girl for her intellect, but is really a 3-minute song about getting head. The metaphor is so thinly veiled that it's impossible to not know what they're talking about. They sound like junior high kids that just discovered some new slang, and for the record, all 3 of them were there in their late 20s when this album was released. Things slow down with the third and final single from this album, Provider. The video for this one has a shirtless Pharrell riding around the neighborhood with his friends on BMX bikes, probably the same ones from the Lap Dance video. The song is presented like an outlaw country song where a man has to do what he has to do to feed his family, and if that means doing things that are illegal, then so be it. This is an approach that isn't taken very often in hip-hop and almost never in R&B, and it's refreshing to see. Truth or Dare is notable because Pharrell, Khalees, and Pusha T all get their own verses. Khalees was already a superstar at this point, especially in the UK, but this was more or less the first time we got to hear Pusha T. His group Clips released a single in '96 called The Funeral, but their album with Elektra Records, Exclusive Raw Footage, was shelved, so that was all we got to hear until now. He only gets 8 bars, and if I'm being honest, his brother Malice does better with his 8-bar verse on Am I High later on in the album, but this is a cool artifact. Grinding was released a few months after this album, Lord Willing was released in August, and the rest is history. Tape You is probably the most Neptune sounding song on the album, mostly because of their use of the Korg Trident, which was and probably still is their main weapon of choice. Every song on this album sounds like they were piecing together different genres of music, but this one especially. The live drums and chord progression sound R&B, the synthesizer lead sounds like something from Steely Dan or Star Trek for that matter, and the 808 drums feels like they were taken from an 80s house track. Lyrically, this is a song about a guy begging his girlfriend to let him tape her having sex with another woman. It's a bold move, and because the man wrote this song, the bold move pays off. One of my favorite songs from the album has always been Run to the Sun. According to a 2014 tweet from Tyler the Creator, this was the first N.E.R.D song he'd ever heard. This wasn't a single, so I'm not sure how this happened, but it's not hard to hear how this song influenced albums like Flower Boy and all of his subsequent albums. Baby Doll has a modern take on a 60s sound all the way down to Khaleesi's backing vocals and the psychedelic guitar sounds. According to both members, how the Neptunes collaborative process usually works is that Pharrell works on the bare bones on the track, while Chad adds the chorus and the harmonies. And you can really tell that this is the case on Am I High. The piano part that flies in for the chorus was probably something that Chad added after Pharrell brought it to him. The song sounds fine without it, but that part really elevates the song. Lyrically, P is really feeling himself, basically telling the girl that she should get with him because he's like drugs. The last verse of the song has always thrown me for a loop. Apparently he's hitting on a woman who is a lesbian and her friends don't know that she's actually bisexual. And one night he ate her out while she's sleeping next to her girlfriend. If that happens, either that person's partner is a deep sleeper or you're not doing a good job. Rockstar was technically the second single from this album after Lap Dance, but the first single released from this version of the album. It includes the famous lyric, I guess you ain't heard that we swallow guys. It's pretty obvious throughout the album that Pharrell doesn't overthink his lyrics, and this seems to be one of those cases. There's a moment in the music video where he decides to not mouth the words to this part, so it seems like he didn't catch on to what he was saying until he finished recording the song. Speaking of the music video, there's supposedly a Hype Williams directed version of that video that I would love to see. Bobby James is a song that can be interpreted a few different ways. On the surface, it's about a 17-year-old homeless drug addict, but it can also be interpreted as the life of a touring musician. The only thing that makes me say this are the final lines of the song, can you spare some change for the world to see? If Bobby James is a struggling drug addict, then this line doesn't make sense. Spare some change for the world to see what? A starving artist is traveling across the country hoping to make enough money to get them to the next gig, all in the hopes that eventually the world will see and appreciate their art. But then again, I did just say that Pharrell doesn't seem to overthink his lyrics, so what do I know? The last minute and a half interlude after this song features someone playing the sax, and I'm assuming it's Chad singing as he does play. The original version of this album ends with Bobby James. The re-release ends with Stay Together, which is still on the original version but tucked away somewhere in the middle. It's a song that is a mostly straightforward song about missing his girlfriend who left him, but it takes a psychotic turn at the end. But Pharrell is charming enough to not make it too creepy. It's still a little creepy. So happy anniversary to In Search Of, an album that convinced kids to wear trucker hats and skateboard in their music videos. It mashed up different music genres and told black kids that they didn't have to conform to social norms. Without this album, it's possible that Odd Future wouldn't even exist, and that alone makes it an album worth celebrating. See you next time when I talk about the Beastie Boys' Check Your Head. This is Free Tillman, the only guy on the internet that doesn't know everything. Peace.